I feel like a common problem that a lot of book influencers have, and maybe just a lot of readers in general, is being in the middle of too many series. And I am not different in that. Hi, my name is Sarah Freshly and welcome back to Freshly Read Books. I think I used to be better about it. Like I used to not have such a hard time finishing series, or maybe actually, no, that's not what it is. It's that I didn't read series very much. When I was younger, I really liked the idea of it. But as I'd gotten older, I like stopped reading so many series. And recently I've really picked that back up without, finishing any of them. So I thought it'd be fun to go through the series that I'm currently in the middle of, in the hopes that maybe by bringing my own awareness to this fact that I will then be able to fix it. And then from that, maybe do a little video series where I actually work on reading these, which is not an uncommon thing on BookTube. There are many, many creators that do the same sort of thing. And personally, I love it. I love seeing people work through their series. I also love seeing people work through their TBRs. So that's also why I want to do it, because I love to watch it. So now I want to make it. So let's go through the 23 series that I am currently in the middle of, and I guess how much it would take to get me out of them. Okay, so the first one is The Shining, technically, because this is two books. Like there is a continuation of The Shining. I've read The Shining. I think it's Dr. Sleep is that the second book. And so I did count it. It feels a little bit weird. There are a few of these that feel weird to count just because I don't think you really need to read the whole series, but I am a completionist, and there are very few series that I have said, no, I'm not going to continue reading. This one is one that I would like to finish. It's just one other book, and I'm very curious about it. The Shining by Stephen King, if you don't know, is about this family that go to this hotel in the middle of nowhere in Colorado, actually. I can go to the hotel now. Oh, maybe I'll get Dr. Sleep and then go to the Overlook Hotel / the Stanley. I don't remember which is the name of the hotel in the book and which is the one that's in real life, but one of them is called Overlook and one of them's the Stanley Hotel. But I should go to that and like read Dr. Sleep and maybe like other Stephen King novels or something. That would be fun. But yeah, this family goes there and the hotel is, there's a lot going on there. It's a scary book. I've read it and also watched the movie. I think the book was pretty long-winded, but good overall. I didn't like the movie. I think I just don't like Stanley Kubrick. I'm sorry. I know he's like a famous director and he did a lot for like film in general. But like, I've watched 2 movies that were directed by him at this point, and both of them, not a huge fan. That feels like the wrong opinion, but it is my opinion, so gotta stick by it. Then the next series I have on here is You, which is the series that of course sparked the Netflix show about it, although at this point they've diverged almost completely. And I haven't watched the most recent season, and I also haven't read the most recent book, although I did get like halfway through it. I can't remember the name of it, but I'll put it here. I should, because it's been on my currently reading group of Storygraph for so long now, but I still haven't read it. This follows Joe, and you are in his perspective throughout the book. It's first person from his perspective. And he's not a good guy. He stalks people, he does a lot of other things, but you get the unique perspective of being in his head. And so it's a very weird like juxtaposition of feelings that you have, where you almost like want certain things to happen for him, and then on the other hand you're like, no, like, please run away from this man. I know I'm in his head, but like you need to get out because I'm in his head, and I can see what's going on in here, and it's not great. And each book kind of takes place in like a different area. Like he starts, the first book is in New York, and then he goes to, I think, California after that. And it's a bit of moving around, but the cool thing about it is the further it gets and like the more he's done and like the more people he's come across, the more his past seems to follow him. And so every book you get a little bit more of what his past was, like of the books that you've read already, like it just keeps catching up more and more with him. So there's more of his past is influencing his future the further it goes on. Then I have Heartstopper, the Heartstopper series by Alice Osman. This is an incredibly popular series that made the incredibly popular Netflix series that is wonderful. Love it so much. I first watched it before reading it just because I'm not huge on graphic novels. I like graphic novels, but usually more for like fantasy purposes rather than like romance purposes or like sci-fi or something like that. But watching the series did make me want to go and read the books. So while I was on vacation, I got 2 of them from the library just as ebooks, and I read them that way. But at this point, I think that I would prefer to actually like get the full series and read them physically, because I think that would be fun. And also they're just really cute books, so they would just be nice to own. Then we have When in Rome, which is by, I think, Sarah Adams. So there is technically, I don't know sometimes whether to call things series or not, because I don't think there's like a name for this series, but there is a second book that comes after When in Rome, and I enjoyed When in Rome, which is kind of rare for me in romance novels, so I would like to read the second one, which is, I think, one of the sisters of the guy from the first book, and the bodyguard, I want to say, of the girl from the first book. That sounds right to me, but I don't actually know. It's been a while. But the first book was kind of this like Roman holiday-esque book, in that the main character really liked the movie Roman Holiday. She was like the superstar or something, but she wanted to get away from it all, and she wanted to go to Rome because that's what they do in Roman Holiday. Like, that's what the princess does. She gets this like time away while she's in Rome to kind of just be herself and not like be royalty and everything. So that's what the main character wants, but she can't just like get to Rome immediately. So instead she goes to the closest Rome she can find, which is Rome, Kentucky. Then she ends up like meeting a guy there who has like 3 sisters, and I believe one of those sisters is the main girl from the second book. Then we have Before the Coffee Gets Cold, which I do have the first book of here. So I think there are 4 books now out that are a part of this series, but I've only read the first one, this one, which is a collection of 4 stories all set in the same coffee shop, where it's got this like time traveling properties to it. If you sit at this specific table, you can time travel, but you have to come back, or you have to finish your coffee before it gets cold. Otherwise something happens, and I can't remember what. But it's a really like tender and like heartbreaking book, but also it makes you feel like warm inside. And this book is like all vibes. And so I'd like to continue on in the series because I really enjoyed this first one. Okay, and then we have the Aunties trilogy. So the first book is Dial A for Aunties. The second book is Something About a Wedding. So I've read those 2, but I haven't read the third one. This is a fun series. I was kind of torn about whether or not I wanted to continue in it, just because I really liked the first book. The second book was kind of meh, but I think that maybe the third book will recapture that magic. I think the second book was meh so much because it felt very similar to the first book in a lot of ways, except that the wedding was being had by like our main character. Like, she's the one getting married. And I just felt like she was dealing with too much, and I just wanted like the mystery aspect of it without the like, oh, I need to get to here, here, and here for like my wedding things, but also this other thing's happening. And I was just like, well, I don't want you to focus on the wedding. Like, I know you're getting married, but could you focus on this mystery? Because that's the part I'm interested in, which isn't fair to her. But as a reader, that's what I wanted. And so I'm hoping that maybe we'll be able to get like back to something like that. Oh, and then we have the Book of Dust, which is 2 books that are prequels, I think, to the Golden Compass trilogy, which is called something else, His Dark Materials. The thing is, I haven't read His Dark Materials, the trilogy, but when the Book of Dust, when the first one came out, my book club chose it to be one of our book club books because a lot of them had read the His Dark Materials trilogy while like growing up. So it was like kind of an exciting thing to revisit. And I still made the decision, oddly, to read that book, even though I had no idea what was going on, like world-wise. It was still fun. Like, it was still a good book. It is a prequel, so like nothing that happens later has happened yet. So I'm assuming I wasn't like spoiling anything for myself. But at this point, and I would like to continue with it because I thought that it was interesting, and I think that I'd like it even more now because I've been going like back and getting more into fantasy again. And so at this point in my life, like, I think I'd actually like it more than I did when I read it for the book club. But I would like to read the His Dark Materials trilogy first, which I actually own 2 of the books of, the first 2 books of here. So I'd like to read that trilogy and then go back, and I'd probably reread the first Book of Dust and then the second one. I think there's just 2, and then I'll be good on that series. But I do technically have it in the series I'm in the middle of because I have read one of the books. So, oh, and then we have the band. So I've read Kings of the Wild like 3 times at this point, which is the first book in this series. And this is the second book, Bloody Rose. I've had it for a very long time, and I haven't read it because we still don't know when the third book is coming out. Like, Nicholas Eames is taking his time with it, which is fine. I want it to be good. But I also, I'm worried about reading this one and then just like not having this series anymore, because I loved Kings of the Wild so very much. And I'm sure that I'm gonna love this one. At least then I know I can like reread it a few times. Like, clearly I got something out of that with Kings of the Wild. But I also think because this follows not the same group of 4 from the first one, or 5, but since this one doesn't like follow those same people, there is part of me that's like, oh, am I gonna like it as much? Which I'm sure that I will, because it's still gonna have the same humor, it's still the same author, and I can trust him to write good characters because he did that already. But still, Kings of the Wild, if you haven't read it, you really should. It's so amazing, especially if you're into D&D, especially if you're into fantasy and like more classic fantasy, and especially if you like to laugh. Do you like laughing? You'll love Kings of the Wild. It's about this band of mercenaries that have been like out of the game for a while, but they were like huge when they were around originally. And then one of the guys, his daughter Like something happens to her and he wants to go save her, so he brings the band back together for like one last mission. But they're all like retired at this point. But I love them. All of their characters are so good. All the characters of the people they meet are so good, and it's hilarious. Like it'll make you laugh out loud. It's so good. I cannot overstate how much I love that book. So if I read this, I'll be officially caught up in the series, but I've just really been putting it off. I really just need to get to it. And then we have ACOTAR. So I have finished the first 3 books of this, which I believe it was originally meant to be a trilogy, and then they like continued it on, which makes sense because it really felt like it concluded everything. But there are 2 more books, and I think there might even be more after that. I don't actually know. I'm really torn about this one because I'm not having a great time. But I'm having a fun enough time to like keep going. I don't know what it is. I think it's because everybody else is so obsessed with Sarah J Maas and the series in general that like I want to be a part of it. But I'll be honest in saying that like I do struggle with it. The second book I had a lot of fun with. That book was a lot of fun. The first book I like kind of hated. And then the third book was just kind of like, some of the parts were like fun and some of them weren't. But the 4th book is very short, and I've heard good things about the 5th book and that it comes from a different perspective, which I think is my main problem with it. So I feel like I still want to finish out at least where the series is at this point, and I will probably try reading the other Sarah J Maas books, but there are probably other series that I'll prioritize over that. I don't know. I have a friend that's really into all of these books, and I want to be able to talk to her about it, but also it does make me feel bad when I like finish a book and I don't share like her same level of excitement about it, you know? Okay, and then I have one called A Brief History, which I actually don't at all know what that's from. Oh no, I do. It's this. It's a nonfiction series I'm in. So this is the first book, which is Sapiens by Yuval Noah Harari. This is a brief history of humankind. And then the next one is like, I think it's looking into the future or something. This took me forever to read. It's dense. Like it is very much a nonfiction book that is teaching you a lot, but also it was so good. And I used to like wake up and just read a little bit of this every morning. And that was honestly just really nice. Something about a nonfiction in the morning. I don't know what it is. So I would like to continue and like get the second book, continue reading this. I think there's 3 books at this point though. So it'll take me a little bit longer to catch up. Especially because of how long it takes me to actually read through at least this one. Maybe the next ones will be different, but I have a feeling it'll be kind of the same pace. But that is one of like my favorite books, and it might be my favorite nonfiction. It just gives you so much about the history of like humans and currency and religion and politics and like all these things, biology, these things that have slowly like become what they've become. And it's so interesting to get the background from it. And like every section I was like, ooh, I can't wait to see what this section's gonna say. And every time my mind was like a little bit blown, or I ended up thinking about things in a different way, and I felt both bigger and smaller than I did before that. And it's just like one of those, you know? It's so good. Okay, this next one, I don't know if I haven't decided. Maybe actually by putting it in this, I want your opinion. Should I actually try to read this series? Okay, let me see if I can say this right. It's Agatha Christie's Hercule Poirot series. How is that? I didn't take French, I took Spanish. But this is like a detective series. They've been making movies recently that have been a lot of fun. And I think that in general, like the stories are fun. I've only read one of them and it's not at all in order. It was Murder on the Orient Express, which was a book club book when the movie was about to come out. I've also seen, I think, Death on the Nile, but just those books are so much fun. Like they're a fun little detective mystery. I'm not huge on detective mysteries, but I like Hercule enough to like kind of look past that, and I've been challenging myself to read them more. I don't know, is this something that I should actually read? There are 39 books in that, like 39 mysteries that he's done. Is that crazy? Is that too much? I can't decide. Maybe I should read the first one and decide. No, you decide. I want you to decide. I'm putting this on you because I don't want to make the decision. Oh, I don't know if I'm going to continue this one actually. It's the Amgash series by Elizabeth Strout. It starts with My Name is Lucy Barton, and then Anything is Possible is the second book, and then Oh William is the third. And then Lucy by the Sea came out recently. Or maybe not that recently, I don't know when, but that's the fourth book. So part of me wants to read it just because like I've already read 3 of them, which I did purely because Oh William was nominated for a book award. What was that? That was Booker, I think. And I was reading all of the Booker Prize books, but I don't know if I want to continue in it. I don't think I liked it enough. You know what? Executive decision. I'm not continuing in that series. Look at that. Now I only have 22 series that I'm in the middle of. And then we have the Expanse series. So this one I've talked about a million times on my channel because I've been like actively reading through the series, and because I have a reading group that reads this series together, like that really helps. So I actually have the 5th book here because I just filmed my summer TBR and this is on it, but these are all of them, or all of the ones that I have left, 5 through 9, plus the short stories that happen kind of between the other books. But yeah, I've read 4 of the books. I have 5 plus some short stories left to read because it's a 9-book series. Did I say that? This is a sci-fi space opera series that is so much fun. It's like set in our kind of solar system with Earth and Mars, but a lot of like space stations too, and follows mostly like this one crew as something happens that kind of disrupts everybody and threatens everybody, but also there's like a lot that people are unable to almost like get over politically and like what is currently going on, this like ongoing thing between Earth and Mars, not to mention like once you bring the like space stations and what are called the belters, which have like their own opinions, but obviously not each group is like a monolith or anything, but there's just like a lot going on. It's a very complex universe, and then also there's this other like catastrophic thing that is threatening everything. That's as vague as I'm gonna be about it while talking about what the series is about, but not spoiling anything. It's so much fun. I'm having a great time in it. It's gotta be one of my favorite series. All of the books have been super high rated for me. And if you like sci-fi, I definitely recommend it. If you are a little bit worried about it, I think that it's very approachable, the first book especially. So if you just wanna dip your toes in, I highly recommend it. Then we've got Christmas in Eldovia. That's right. Oh my gosh, I forgot about this one. So this is like a Christmas romance book series. I know the second one was The Duke and I. Oh, the first one was A Princess for Christmas, I think. It's just kind of these like cheesy Christmas books that I don't love, but they do get me in the spirit for like the holidays. So I'll probably continue reading them. I think there's one that's been published since the last one that I read. Okay, yeah, it's still just one other one, which is called So This Is Christmas. Oh, and it's not The Duke and I, is that what I said? I'm pretty sure that's the first book in the Bridgerton series, which I haven't read. But I have been thinking about Bridgerton lately, obviously. The second book is called Duke Actually, and this is Jenny Holiday is the author. So yeah, this December I'll probably end up reading So This Is Christmas, and then I'll be caught up in that series unless she publishes another one this Christmas. And then we have the Thursday Murder Club mystery series. So this one I read the first of a while ago, and I kind of decided that I wouldn't continue in the series, but since then I keep thinking about it and I kind of miss it. I don't know why. I can't explain it. So this is also kind of like a detective story, but it's really a group of people in an old folks home, and they have a little group that's called the Thursday Murder Club where they take a look at like cold cases and stuff, but then like a real mystery happens that's kind of related to them, not related to them, but like they know about because they know some of the people that are like involved or could be involved in the first book, and so they're like actually solving a real mystery instead. I barely remember what happens though, but I do think about it a lot. Like I think about the characters a lot. So I might actually go back and reread the first one and then continue on in the series because it just feels like comfy cozy, and I want that now, and maybe that was just something I didn't want at the time. And actually along kind of the same lines that I realize now that I didn't put on this list, so maybe I'm back up at 23, is the Broken Earth trilogy. I read the first book, and I think the second book, I don't know if I read it all the way through, and kind of decided that I didn't want to continue in it, but it is also something that I think about a lot. And so I think that I'm going to go back and reread the first one, also just because I'm getting more into fantasy, and I think that my brain is more able to read like higher fantasy books and like comprehend and really stick with it. So I think I'm more at a space where I could read and understand, and people love the 5th season. So I think that I kind of want to get back to it. I never got rid of the books, even though I had decided for like years that I wasn't going to read them anymore. I'd give them to Curtis because I thought that actually he would really like them. And then I finally ended up taking them back because now I actually do want to read them again. So I don't know if that counts because I would have to go back. I guess it does because I did read them and I do plan on finishing the series. Okay, yes, it's on the list. We're back at 23. And then we have Sherlock Holmes, which also I don't know if I should technically put on this list because I have read all of Sherlock Holmes. Like I've read all of the stories, which I think are like 9 novels and then several stories along with that. So I've done that. I've read all those, but it was in high school and it's been a while. I've reread Study in Scarlet a few times and Hounds of Baskerville a few times, but I want to do like a full reread. Okay, and then we have Less. Wow, it has been a long time since I've read the first book in this. So this is just like a 2-book series at this point. I don't know if he's gonna write any more like with Less. This is Less. That's him. I read the first book in January of 2020, which I only remember because I was on a cruise. And that obviously became very significant in my mind after what would happen not long after that. But it was a book club book, and I went on my first and probably only cruise ever. Like, I had fun, but like, it's not my style. It's not my speed of like vacation. I much prefer a different type of vacation than that, but it was fun to do once. But I went with two of my like book club friends, my friends that I made through book club. And so we were all reading less because obviously it was the book club book. So that was a lot of fun. So I have positive like memories of reading it like by the pool and everything. And also I just really liked the like feeling, the general feeling and like vibes of that book. Les just like ends up saying yes to a lot of, he's an author, and so he ends up saying yes to a lot of invitations that he gets that includes like traveling around the world. And I think he is supposed to have done that for like a year. I can't remember. It's been a long time since I've read the first book, but it's just him like going around and doing this, and the thoughts that he has and the conversations that he has, the different like lifestyles of the people that he talks to. So I'm assuming that this is kind of like along the same lines, but it seems like he just kind of gets lost in the west to the south. Okay. So he's still moving around, but it seems like it's more in the US than like across the world, like the first one was. Then we have Outline by Rachel Cusk. So I've read the first book. This is a trilogy, I think. Although I don't know how much like story-based it could be. Like the first book seemed like such a self-contained story that I can't imagine where it would go from there. But I did enjoy it, and I do think that I want to continue on it. Although this is one of those ones that I'm more iffy on. So once again, if you could tell me, should I continue it? Should I like read that entire trilogy? Just feels like it's been so long. I do remember though, like what the first book was about. It's an author that's doing like this speaking series, but then she also has some stuff going on outside of that. That's roughly what it was about. And I remember like enjoying it, but I am kind of torn. Like I don't feel the need to like have to continue reading on. I don't know. You tell me. Then we have There by Tommy Orange. So there have been two books now. Oh, I did not pull out the right book. There have been two books now. This is the second book that is technically it feels weird to call it a series, but I do believe this is like an actual continuation of the first book. Yes, in a novel that is by turns shattering and wondrous, Tommy Orange has conjured the ancestors of the family readers first fell in love with in There. Warriors, drunks, outlaws, addicts, asking what it means to be children and grandchildren of massacre. Ooh, okay, so it seems like a lot, which already There was a lot, but this seems like more. There was about many indigenous people across the US and them all traveling to Oakland, I think it was, for this big powwow that happens there, and like kind of what's going on in their lives, and then like something that's being like planned to have happen there. So there's a lot. It's really good. That was, I think, also on my favorites list of whatever year I read that. So I am excited about this one. Although I do think I'm going to need to be in the right frame of mind for it, which I'm not currently. I'm taking a break right now from literary fiction because I've been having a hard time. It's mostly just because the last literary fiction book that I read like broke me in like the best way, in the way that literary fiction does, but it just was like kind of slapped me in the face with like, okay, you need to just take a break from this genre for a little bit. That was Brotherless Night. Fantastic book. So incredible. But man, did that get to me. Then we have the Farseer trilogy, which I have read the first book of. I own the second book of, but I haven't started it yet. And then obviously there's one other book for this. I plan on reading these very soon as I'm joining in on the Fitzalong, which is a reading series of all the books that are in the universe that this is in. So it's actually like 3 trilogies and then one book series. It's 4 books long. So even though I will be finishing up this series relatively soon, I will be starting like another trilogy right afterwards. But yeah, Lianne from Literary Diversions is doing this series on her channel and doing like live shows for each of the books. You get like 2 months to read each book. I'm behind because the live show for this one already happened and I haven't started it yet. So basically what I'm saying is like, I need to catch up. But that's about Fitz, who is like this little boy who is, his dad is the king of this place, Buckkeep? I don't know. I don't remember. Or he's like a prince that's first in line, I think is actually more accurate. Was he the actual king? This is bad. I already can't remember these things. But like he dies really early in the book. Like that's not a spoiler. It happens really early in the first book. So I think that my connection with like what the lineage is kind of confused me, but it doesn't really matter because Fitz was born like out of wedlock to a woman that the king was with before he was with who would like end up being his wife. So it doesn't seem like Fitz has like any claim to the throne or anything, but I don't know. There's also a magic system that happens, and he's also like being trained to be an assassin. That's why the first book's called Assassin's Apprentice. The first book was a little slow, but it did really pick up in like the last 100 or so pages, and I've heard that in general the first book is slow and that like that's not representative of the entire series. So I'm excited to continue. Then we have the Lovelight Farms series, which is a collection of 4 books. I don't know if the 4th book is out yet, but it's coming out this year if it isn't. So the first book is called Lovelight Farms. It's a Christmas romance book that happens during winter, obviously, during Christmas. But the reason why I point that out is because every book takes place in a different season. So the second book is In the Weeds. It is like the spring book, and then there's a summer one, and the fall one is being published this year. So I've only read Lovelight Farms. I've technically started In the Weeds as a way to help me get out of a reading slump that I was in from like moving in general. But I did take a pause on it just because there were other books that I wanted to get to more quickly. But I do plan on getting into this, especially because I feel like spring's basically over at this point. I do plan on getting to this pretty soon and continuing in the series, because I would like this year to like finish the series with the seasons, but now I'm a little behind. And then we have the 3-Body Problem trilogy, which it might be called something else. This is also a Netflix series at this point, so I would really love to finish the trilogy. This I read earlier this year. It's really good. It's really well written. It does feel like a translated book. Like it doesn't feel like a US or even like UK style sci-fi book, you know? But personally, like I really like that about it. I just think that that's something that, I don't know, I guess people should know like before going into it, because I think that some people like opened this thinking that it was going to feel like a sci-fi book in the US, which it just doesn't. I mean, I'm sure there are sci-fi books written in the US that do feel similar to this, and I'm sure there are sci-fi books written in China that feel similar to ours, but I guess maybe just the ones that get super popular like kind of fit these certain dynamics that are different from each other. Okay, the trilogy is called Remembrance of the Earth's Past. So this is basically about aliens that like kind of have some control over some things that are happening on Earth. I think that it asks a lot of questions about like humanity in general, and wanting progress and wanting to be for something more than what maybe one life seemingly could be for. There's a lot of like that kind of dichotomy of like humanity as a whole versus like humanity as a singular, and like the relationships specifically that you can as one person make versus like the change you can make upon the world or the universe. It's really wonderful. I already want to read it again, but I'll work on finishing the series in general. I think that's another one of my problems. I really love the first books of series. That's why I've read The Kings of the Wild 3 times, but I do think that sometimes it makes it harder for me to want to continue. I ended up reading Leviathan Wakes 3 times before continuing to the second book. That's in the Expanse series. So yeah, I think this is a common problem. Like I'll read the first book of a series and I just get so excited about like the beginning of something that I just want to continue to read it over and over for some reason. Okay. Oh, I put there on there twice. We're back at 22. Well, great. So that feels kind of like a win. Those are all the series. Sorry for being anticlimactic by realizing that the last one I actually put it up higher on the list as well. But those are all the series that I'm currently reading. There are some other ones that I'll probably start pretty soon if I'm being completely honest. Specifically, I'm thinking about the Elena Ferrante like 4-part series, and technically his Dark Materials I'll be starting soon, but that's in service of a different series in here. So like that's fine, I think. But I do have like a couple of first books of series on my shelves that I will probably start somewhat soon, but I would like to maybe make this a series where I tackle the books that are on this list. And now you know the full list, you know where I'm starting from. Please do let me know though if I should continue with the Outline series by Rachel Cusk and also the Hercule Poirot series by Agatha Christie, because I really just don't know on those ones. Okay, thank you so much. Please let me know what series you're in, which ones you think are just like amazing and everybody should read. And I hope that you enjoyed watching this video. If you did, please do consider subscribing, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.